Victoria Goode was 27, beautiful, driven. She walked for Vogue Mexico. She worked retail to stay afloat. She chased her dream across New York City, never giving up. But dreams don't always protect you. In the end, she wasn't killed by the struggle. She was killed by jealousy. Inside a women's shelter, a place meant to protect her, Victoria's light was taken by the woman who slept 6 feet away. She walked for Vogue, but died in a homeless shelter, stabbed by her own roommate after begging for help. If you believe women like Victoria Goode deserve safety, justice, and to be remembered, don't just watch, share this video. And if you want more real stories that the world tries to ignore, subscribe now. Your click helps us give voice to the forgotten. Victoria Goode was born on October 14, 1995, in Oklahoma City. Her home was steady, warm, and full of promise. A mother who listened more than she spoke. A father who led with quiet strength. They didn't just raise her with love. They raised her with expectation. In their house, dreams weren't silly. They were sacred. Victoria didn't dream of crowns or castles. She dreamed in textures, thread, color, camera flash. As a child, she turned cereal boxes into backpacks and made art out of scraps. She wasn't trying to be seen. She already saw herself clearly. Her family noticed. They didn't try to box her in. They made space. Space to grow, to express, to believe that the world might one day watch her walk into it with the poise she carried since childhood. She graduated from John Marshall High School in 2014 and enrolled in Redlands Community College with plans to study psychology, but life, in its cruelest form, interrupted. The death of her brother didn't just break her, it redirected her. In her grief, she made a vow. She would model, for real, not club gigs or flyer shoots. She would walk next to women whose faces lived on magazine covers. She would make her brother proud. From that moment, everything changed. She sent emails, made calls, signed with a local agency, built a portfolio from the ground up. Rejection met her often, but never broke her spirit. She remembered what her mother always told her. It only takes one yes, and Victoria believed it because she didn't just want the dream. She was ready to fight for it. She got off that bus in New York City with nothing but a worn suitcase, a printout of her portfolio, and her brother's memory sitting heavy in her chest. She didn't know anyone here, didn't have a plan B, just one dream and a promise she couldn't break. Victoria had sworn that she'd make it, not just for herself, but for the boy who used to cheer her on in the living room, who told her she could be on the covers they saw in line at the grocery store. He was gone now, but the promise was alive. She signed with a small agency. It wasn't much, but it was a start. She walked into every casting call like she belonged there, even when the girls next to her had famous last names and full-time stylists. She learned how to blend in just enough, but never so much that they forgot her face. During the day, she worked at Forever 21, folding jeans, clipping price tags, fixing mannequins that never stayed still. At night, she'd switch her shoes and rush to castings with her portfolio tucked under her arm. She'd walk in with blistered feet and still move like she owned the floor. And for years, she heard no, or worse, nothing. Silence. The kind that makes your chest sink when you check your phone and there's not even a maybe. But Victoria didn't quit. She'd call her mom and say, "Next time," and every time felt like the time it would all turn around. Then, fall of 2022. The photo shoot came, the runway came, and her name was printed in the same font as Vogue Mexico. She didn't cry, she didn't scream. She just stood there in front of the magazine page with shaking hands and whispered, "I told you I'd get here." It wasn't just a job, it was a victory, over grief, over rejection, over nights in a shared apartment with no heat, over the fear that maybe, just maybe, she'd never be enough. But that moment proved it. Victoria Goode made it, and nobody could take that from her until someone did. Modeling gave her moments, but never stability. The cameras stopped flashing long before the bills stopped coming. In New York, beauty didn't pay the rent, exposure didn't cover prescriptions, and a name in Vogue didn't hold off eviction notices. When the pandemic hit, the silence was brutal. Runways closed, brands pulled out. One by one, the doors she worked so hard to open shut tight. The phone didn't ring. The jobs disappeared. But Victoria didn't crumble. She adapted. She put away the heels and put on a Delta Airlines uniform, not because she stopped dreaming, but because dreams don't fill fridges. She worked the aisles with tired feet and a quiet ache in her chest, but her fire never left, not once. By October 2022, the money ran thin. Rent outpaced everything. And even with a job, New York didn't care how hard you tried. It only cared how much you had. So she made a choice. She walked into a shelter. It was never a sign of defeat. It was strategy. A reset. A way to stay close to the city she still believed would call her name again. She chose survival because she still believed in her purpose. At Project Renewal New Providence, she kept to herself, focused, grateful, still applying, still hoping, still holding on. But the shelter wasn't just a place to sleep. It was a room, shared with strangers, one of them broken in ways no one saw coming. Victoria slept on the top bunk. She still played music, still smiled, still believed the storm would pass. What she didn't know was that the storm had a name, and it slept 6 feet away. Charmaine Crossman was 42, born in Jamaica, loud in presence, louder online. She called herself a content creator, but there was no content, only noise. Her phone was always in her hand, recording videos that made no sense, lip syncs that missed the beat, dances stiff as her smile. Prayers whispered to the ceiling like a warning. She filmed everything, herself in the mirror, herself on the floor, herself doing nothing. Sometimes she wore clothes, sometimes barely. The videos weren't joyful. They were unsettling, like watching someone unravel in real time. At night, she blasted music through the shelter walls, mumbled to herself, laughed at things no one said. Her moods changed like weather, hot, then cold, then storming without warning. Victoria noticed. How could she not? The room they shared was small, and the energy inside it shifted every time Charmaine walked in. Victoria was everything Charmaine wasn't. Disciplined, focused, working towards something real. She filmed too, but her work had purpose. She was booking jobs, submitting castings, growing, and for Charmaine, that was unbearable. She watched Victoria with a quiet rage, watched her smile, watched her rise, watched her do the very thing Charmaine only pretended to do, succeed. And day by day, resentment began to grow, not just envy, but something colder, something darker, something that couldn't be ignored. December 16th, 2022, started like any other hard day. Victoria came back to the shelter tired but holding on, maybe with music in her ears, maybe with a moment to finally breathe. But Charmaine wasn't in the mood for peace. She had been spiraling for weeks. That night, something inside her snapped louder than the music Victoria was playing. It started small. Charmaine grabbed a can of air freshener and sprayed it, right in Victoria's face. Sharp, deliberate, blinding. Victoria reacted, fast. She threw a blanket back at her, maybe out of shock, maybe just to get away. maybe hoping it would end there, but Charmaine didn't stop. She left the room, then came back with a knife. Without warning, she lunged. She stabbed Victoria in the chest, again and again, in the neck, in the face, in the eye. Victoria tried to run. She made it to the hallway. She bled as she moved, begging her body to hold on, but Charmaine chased her, silent, ruthless, focused. The sixth-floor hallway filled with screams. Doors opened, residents froze. A young woman, full of life and promise, collapsed to the floor with her blood trailing behind her. Paramedics rushed her to Bellevue Hospital. She didn't make it. The stab wound to her chest had severed a major artery. She died fighting to breathe, fighting to live, and in seconds everything she built, all the years she clawed her way forward, was gone. After the stabbing, Charmaine didn't cry. She didn't call for help. She didn't stay. She packed a bag, walked past Victoria's body, and left the shelter like she was just clocking out. The knife, wrapped in a towel, was tossed into a trash can nearby. She disappeared into the city like nothing happened. For 4 days, no one knew where she went, but the blood on her clothes never left her. She turned herself in on December 20th in Canarsie, Brooklyn, still wearing the same stained clothes from the night she took Victoria's life. No apology, no breakdown, just silence, like she had done the world a favor. But what hurt more than the crime itself was the truth that followed. Victoria had told the shelter staff she felt unsafe. She said it plainly. Charmaine was unstable. Her behavior was getting darker. The energy in that room was dangerous. They didn't listen. There had been prior complaints, other incidents, signs, but nothing changed. Nothing was done. And now Victoria was gone. Not because no one could have seen it coming, but because they did and looked away. Victoria's brother, Damon King, couldn't sleep after the call. His sister, his bright, beautiful baby sister, was gone. Not from illness, not from accident, but from a knife inside a shelter after warning everyone who would listen that she didn't feel safe. He didn't just grieve. He acted. Damon filed a lawsuit against the City of New York and Project Renewal, the shelter that failed to protect her. He called it what it was, negligence. They had known, they had records, they had warnings, and still they let Charmaine stay. Still, they left Victoria in that room. Alongside the lawsuit, Damon launched a GoFundMe, not just to cover funeral costs, but to tell the world who Victoria really was. Not a victim, a fighter, a sister, a daughter, a dreamer who deserved to be more than a headline. Attorney Sanford Rubenstein stood beside the family, demanding accountability. He spoke of the system's failure, of the danger that lives inside shelters when safety is treated like an afterthought. And the other women in the shelter, they spoke too. They said it plain. It's not safe in there. They knew what Victoria knew, that not everyone inside those walls is just looking for help. Some are running from demons, some are dragging them in, and for Victoria, no one came fast enough. Victoria's death wasn't just the result of one woman's violence, it was the result of a broken system layered in silence. New York's shelter system is overcrowded and underfunded. Caseworkers are stretched thin, warnings get lost in paperwork, complaints become background noise. By the time danger becomes real, it's already too late. Charmaine's instability wasn't hidden. Her outbursts, her behavior, her past, there were signs. But no one took the time to act. No proper mental health screening, no relocation, no protection for the women forced to live beside her. Victoria had walked for Vogue, but slept on a top. Drunk in fear, she moved between fashion shoots and shared showers, between compliments from designers and silence from staff who dismissed her fears. That contrast, glamour on paper, survival in real life, was the story she lived every day. She had the look, the work ethic, the promise. But what she didn't have was what every woman deserves, safety. And in the end, that's what killed her. Victoria Goode wasn't just a model. She was movement, energy, focus, the kind of woman who showed up even when the world didn't clap. She worked through grief, through rejection, through sleepless nights and cold shelter floors. She kept her promise to her brother, to herself. She didn't come to New York to be famous. She came to become something real. And she did. She was light. Even when the room was dark, even when no one was watching, even when everything around her said give up, she stayed. Now her story stands as a mirror for a system that ignored her, for a city that failed her. Shelters must be more than beds. They must be safe. Mental health warnings must be heard, not after blood is spilled, but before. Women like Victoria should not have to trade safety for survival. Not in a city built on dreams, not ever. She didn't die because she was poor. She didn't die because she was weak. She died because she wasn't protected. Victoria stayed to chase her dream. May her soul continue to rest in peace.